My mother called me her biggest regret at my graduation dinner. 10 years later, those words came back to haunt her. I was 22 when my mother told me the truth about how she felt. It was the night of my college graduation. I had just finished 4 years of working 2 jobs while taking a full course load. I paid for everything myself because my parents said they couldn't help. I found out later they paid for my brother Felix's entire degree without him ever asking. But that night I didn't know that yet. I was just happy to be done. My mother insisted on a family dinner to celebrate. She picked an Italian restaurant downtown and invited my father, Felix, and my Aunt Rita. I thought she was proud of me. I thought the dinner was her way of showing it. I was wrong. The evening started fine. We ordered appetizers, and my father made a toast to my future. Felix scrolled through his phone the whole time, but that was normal for him. My Aunt Rita asked about my job prospects, and I told her I had interviews lined up. Then my mother started drinking. By her 3rd glass of wine, she was loud and loose with her words. She started talking about her life and all the things she wished she had done differently. She said she regretted not traveling more when she was young. She said she regretted not finishing her own degree. She said she regretted marrying so early. Then she looked directly at me and said her biggest regret was having me. She said it casually like she was commenting on the weather. She said I came along too soon and ruined her plans. She said she had to put her dreams on hold because of me. She said Felix was planned and wanted, but I was an accident that changed everything. She said sometimes she wondered what her life would have been like if I had never happened. The table went quiet. My father looked at his plate. Felix actually put down his phone. Aunt Rita stared at my mother with her mouth slightly open. I sat there trying to process what I had just heard. My mother took another sip of wine and asked why everyone was being so sensitive. She said she was just being honest. She said I was an adult now and could handle the truth. She said I should be grateful she kept me at all. I excused myself and went to the bathroom. I stayed in there for 10 minutes trying not to cry. When I came back out, the table had moved on to talking about Felix's new apartment. Nobody mentioned what my mother said. Nobody apologized. Nobody checked if I was okay. I finished the dinner in silence and drove home alone. My mother never brought it up again. She acted like it never happened. When I tried to talk to her about it a week later, she said I was being overdramatic. She said she barely remembered saying anything. She said alcohol makes people say things they don't mean, but she never said she didn't mean it. Over the next 10 years, I kept my distance. I moved 3 hours away. I called on holidays and birthdays, but that was it. I built my own life without her. I got a good job, bought a small house, met a kind man named Oliver who became my husband. I didn't invite my mother to the wedding. I told her it was a small courthouse ceremony with no guests. She found out later from Aunt Rita that we had 50 people there, including my father. She was furious. She said I humiliated her. She said everyone was asking why she wasn't at her own daughter's wedding. She said I was cruel and ungrateful and selfish. I told her I learned from the best. She didn't speak to me for 2 years after that. I didn't mind. Then last spring, my father passed away suddenly. Heart attack at 67. I went to the funeral and sat in the back. My mother barely looked at me. Felix gave the eulogy and thanked our mother for being the backbone of the family. He didn't mention me at all. I left right after the service. 2 months later, my mother called me for the first time in years. She said Felix had sold the family house to pay off debts my father had left behind. She said she had nowhere to live. She said Felix's apartment was too small for her. She said Aunt Rita was in a nursing home now and couldn't help. She said I was her only option. She asked if she could stay with me and Oliver until she figured things out. I let the silence stretch for a long moment. Then I asked her if she remembered what she said to me at my graduation dinner. She said she didn't know what I was talking about. I said she called me her biggest regret. I said she told me I was an accident that ruined her life. I said she told me she wondered what her life would have been like if I never existed. She got quiet. Not the kind of quiet where someone is thinking about what to say next. The kind of quiet where someone has been caught and is deciding how to spin it. I could hear her breathing through the phone. I could hear a television in the background playing something with a laugh track. After about 15 seconds, she cleared her throat and said, "That was a long time ago, and people change." She said she was in a bad place back then. She said the wine made her emotional. She said I could not hold one dinner against her for the rest of her life. I told her it was not one dinner. It was every dinner. Every holiday where Felix got the attention, and I got whatever was left. Every phone call where she asked about him first, and me second. Every birthday card that arrived 2 weeks late or not at all, while Felix got surprise parties and presents stacked in ribbon. Every time she introduced me to someone as her older one instead of by my name, while Felix was always her brilliant son, her pride, the one she never stopped talking about. Every school play where she showed up late or not at all because something came up with Felix. Every Christmas morning where his pile of gifts reached his knees, and mine fit inside a single bag. I told her that graduation dinner was just the first time she said out loud what she had been showing me my entire life. She started crying. She said I was being unfair. She said she always loved me even if she did not always show it the right way. She said she was 63 years old and sitting in a motel room off the highway with 2 suitcases and nowhere to go. She said Felix had given her $500 and told her to figure it out. She said her own son, her planned and wanted son, gave her $500 like she was a stranger on a sidewalk asking for change. I almost felt something. Almost. I could feel the old version of myself trying to rise up inside my chest. The version that spent her whole childhood trying to earn a seat at the table. The version that worked 2 jobs through college to pay for a degree just so she could sit at a restaurant and hear her own mother say she wished she had never been born. That version of me wanted to say, "Come stay with us. We have a spare room. Everything will be fine." But then my mother said the thing that killed whatever sympathy was forming inside me. She said if I had just been more involved with the family, none of this would have happened. She said if I had been around more, I could have kept an eye on things after my father died. She said if I had come to more holidays and made more effort and been a better daughter, then maybe Felix would not have had to handle everything by himself, and maybe she would not be sitting in a motel room with a broken lock on the door, wondering if she was safe. She was homeless. She had 2 suitcases and $500 to her name. She was calling the daughter she publicly called a regret to beg for a roof over her head, and she was still finding a way to make it my fault. I told her I needed to think about it and I would call her back tomorrow. She begged me not to hang up. She said she could not spend another night in that room. She said the walls smelled like cigarette smoke, and the hallway was loud all night, and the lock did not catch properly, and she had pushed the dresser against the door just to feel safe. She said she was scared. I told her I understood exactly what it felt like to be scared and alone and have nobody show up. I told her I would call her back in the morning. Then I hung up. Oliver was sitting on the couch when I came back into the living room. He had a book open on his lap, but he had not turned a page in 20 minutes. He looked at me and asked if I was okay. I sat down next to him and told him everything she said. All of it. The motel, the $500, the broken lock, the dresser against the door, the part where she blamed me for not being around to prevent Felix from destroying her life. Oliver listened without interrupting. He did not tell me what to do. He did not say she is still your mother, or you should be the bigger person, or family is everything, or any of the things people say when they want you to swallow cruelty and call it grace. He just sat with me and let me feel whatever I needed to feel. When I was finished talking, he asked me one question. He asked me what I wanted to do, not what I should do, not what a good daughter would do, what I wanted. I told him I did not know yet. That night I could not sleep. I lay in bed watching the ceiling fan spin in slow circles above me. I kept thinking about the motel room. I kept picturing her sitting on the edge of a thin mattress with stiff sheets and a television bolted to the wall. I kept thinking about her 2 suitcases sitting on the floor next to a dresser she had pushed against the door. 63 years of life reduced to 2 suitcases because her golden child sold her house and handed her pocket change. But every time I started to soften, I heard her voice at that Italian restaurant. The way she said it so casually, like ordering dessert, her biggest regret, an accident that changed everything. She wondered what her life would have been like without me. Those words had lived inside me for 10 years like a splinter buried too deep to pull out. They shaped every decision I made. They were the reason I moved 3 hours away. They were the reason I did not invite her to my wedding. They were the reason I stopped calling except when obligation demanded it. They were the reason I flinched every single time someone said they loved me, because I kept waiting for the word, but to come after it. She planted those words in me like seeds, and then acted surprised when something grew. The next morning, I made 2 phone calls. The first was to my father's old attorney. His name was Harold Briggs, and he had handled the estate after my father died. I asked him what exactly happened with the house after the funeral. He told me something that stopped me cold. The house was never supposed to be sold. My father's will specifically left it to my mother as a life estate. She could live in it for the rest of her life. After she either passed away or chose to leave on her own terms, it was to be divided equally between me and Felix. That was the plan my father put in writing. Signed, witnessed, notarized. But 3 weeks after the funeral, Felix went to my mother with a thick folder of paperwork. He told her the property taxes were more than she could handle on a fixed income. He told her the roof needed $30,000 in repairs. He said the plumbing had issues and the foundation had a crack and the heating system was on its last year. He told her the smartest thing to do was transfer the deed to him so he could manage the property and handle the repairs and make sure she was protected. He said he would take care of everything. She would never have to worry about a single thing. She signed the transfer without reading it. She did not call me. She did not ask a lawyer to review it. She did not ask Felix for a single estimate or inspection report or receipt proving the house actually needed any of the work he described. She did not even tell Harold she was signing. She just did it because Felix asked. And Felix was the planned one, the wanted one, the golden child who could do no wrong. And golden children do not lie to their mothers. Except Felix did. He sold the house 6 weeks after she signed it over. $270,000. He used the money to pay off $42,000 in credit card debt. He covered his car loan. He filled the hole left by a failed restaurant investment from the year before that had gone completely under. He gave our mother $500 from the sale of her own home and told her that was everything left after their father's debts were settled. Harold confirmed that my father's actual debts amounted to less than $4,000. The financial disaster Felix described did not exist. Harold told me one more thing. He said he had tried to reach me during the estate process. He sent 2 letters and left a voicemail on my phone. He never heard back. When he followed up with my mother, she told him I had moved away and severed ties with the family. She told him I did not want anything from my father's estate and had no interest in any of it. That was a lie. I never received those letters. I never got the voicemail. I checked later and discovered the letters were sent to an address I had not lived at in 4 years. My mother had my current address. She had mailed me a birthday card there 8 months before the estate process started. She knew exactly where I lived. She gave Harold the wrong address on purpose. She cut me out of my own father's estate entirely and handed everything to Felix, just like she had done my entire life. When I told Harold the truth, he went quiet for a long time. Then he said I had legal options. He said what Felix did could constitute undue influence or potentially fraud depending on the details. He said the fact that my mother signed away a life estate within 3 weeks of a death while she was clearly in a state of grief was something any judge would examine very closely. He said it would take time, but it was absolutely worth pursuing if I wanted to. I told him I would think about it. Then I made my second call. I called Felix. He picked up on the 3rd ring, sounding irritated like I had interrupted something. I asked him about the house. He let out a long sigh and said it was all handled and there was nothing to discuss. I asked him why he sold it when the will specifically said it was supposed to remain with our mother for her lifetime. He paused. Then he said the will was complicated, and I would not understand because I had not been involved in any of it. I told him I had spoken with Harold Briggs. The line went dead. Not a breath, not a word, just silence. I told him I knew he had our mother sign over the house 3 weeks after the funeral under false pretenses. I told him I knew he sold it for $270,000. I told him I knew he used the money to pay off his own debts. I told him I knew he gave her $500 from the sale of her own home and lied about where every other dollar went. He started talking fast, stumbling over words. He said the debts were real. He said Dad left a financial disaster and someone had to step up. He said he did what needed to be done to protect the family. He said I had no right to come back after years of being absent and question his decisions. Where was I when all of this was happening? He asked. I told him I was exactly where our mother put me, on the outside, where the accident belongs. He had nothing for that. I let the silence stretch. Then I told him he had two choices. Choice one was that he sets up a monthly payment to our mother from the money he took, enough to cover rent and utilities and groceries and basic expenses for however long she needs it. Choice two was that I call Harold Briggs and we begin formal legal proceedings. I told him Harold had already reviewed the transfer documents and said the word fraud came up more than once in his assessment. I told him a judge was not going to feel sympathetic toward a son who tricked a grieving widow into signing away her home 3 weeks after burying her husband and then gave her $500. Felix let out a short, nervous laugh. He said I was making this bigger than it needed to be. He said families do not take each other to court. I told him families also do not tell their daughters they were the biggest regret of their lives in front of a table full of people at a restaurant, but here we are. He stopped laughing. He agreed to the payments, not because he felt remorse, not because he suddenly loved our mother the way a son should, because he was terrified of what would happen if a courtroom turned its lights on every decision he made after the funeral. The golden child does not shine so bright under fluorescent lights. I called my mother the next day. I told her Felix would be sending her money every month, enough for a small apartment and her bills. I told her it was not a gift. It was not charity. It was her money from the house he sold out from under her while she was still wearing black. She did not understand at first. She kept saying, "What do you mean? What do you mean?" So I explained it slowly. I told her Felix tricked her into signing over the house. I told her he took the sale money and used it to pay off his own debts. I told her the $500 he handed her was all she got from a $270,000 sale of the home she was supposed to live in until she died. I told her my father wanted that house to protect her, and Felix erased that protection to cover his own failures. She cried. But this time it was different. She was not crying because she was desperate and scared and alone. She was crying because she finally understood that the child she chose had stolen from her, and the child she threw away was the one standing in the wreckage trying to put things back together. She asked me how I found all of this out. I told her I called Harold because I cared enough to ask the right questions, even though she told him I wanted nothing to do with the family. That part made the line go very quiet. I could hear her breathing change. I told her Harold tried to send me letters, but she gave him my old address. I told her she had my real address the entire time. I told her she cut me out of my own father's estate on purpose. She did not deny it. She did not try to explain it. She just whispered that she was sorry. I told her I heard her. She asked if she could come stay with me and Oliver instead of getting an apartment, just for a little while, just until she was steady again. She said she wanted to be near me. She said she wanted to make things right between us. She said she missed me so much. I said no. She asked why. I told her because 10 years ago, she sat across from me at an Italian restaurant in front of our entire family and told me I was her biggest regret. She told me I was an accident that ruined her life. She said she wondered what her life would have been like if I had never been born. I told her now she had her answer. Her life without me was a motel room off the highway with a broken lock and a dresser pushed against the door and 2 suitcases and a golden child who stole her house and gave her $500. That was the life she spent all those years imagining. She was living it. I was not being cruel. I was being honest. She taught me how. The apartment was ready 2 weeks later. It was small but clean. 1 bedroom with a narrow kitchen and good light coming through the windows in the morning. I drove down on a Saturday and helped her move in. I assembled a bookshelf from a flat box. I hung her curtains. I stocked her refrigerator with groceries and put a sticky note with the Wi-Fi password on the fridge. I made sure the lock on the front door worked. She watched me do all of it from a chair in the corner of the living room. She had a look on her face I had never seen in my entire life. It was not gratitude exactly. It was closer to shame, like she was watching the living proof of everything she got wrong, walk around her new apartment with a screwdriver and a bag of groceries. When I was getting ready to leave, she stopped me at the door. She put her hand on my arm, and her eyes were wet, and she said she needed to tell me something she should have said years ago. She said I was never her biggest regret. She said losing me was. I looked at her standing in the doorway of her small apartment, quiet and modest and barely furnished. Paid for with money her golden child stole and her unwanted daughter clawed back. I told her I appreciated her saying that. I told her I hoped she meant it. Then I got in my car and drove the 3 hours home. Oliver had dinner waiting when I walked through the door. He asked me how it went. I sat down at the kitchen table and looked around at the life I built, the house I saved for, the husband who showed up every single day without being asked, the career I earned through doubles and late nights, and never once asking anybody for help, because I learned very early that help was not coming for me. None of it came from her. None of it came from Felix or my father or anyone who was supposed to be in my corner. All of it came from the accident, the regret, the girl who came along too soon and ruined everything. I told Oliver it went fine. He smiled and passed me the bread. That night, I slept better than I had in 10 years. My mother calls every Sunday now. I pick up about half the time. We talk about small things, the weather, what she watched on television, the neighbor upstairs who plays music too loud. We do not talk about the restaurant. We do not talk about Felix or the house or any of it. Felix sends her the money every month like clockwork because he knows exactly what happens if he stops. He has not called me since that conversation, and I have not called him. I do not hate either of them. Hate takes energy I would rather spend on people who earned it, but I do not pretend we are something we never were. My mother wanted to know what her life would look like without me. She found out, and it turns out her biggest regret was not having me after all. It was every single thing she did after.